Now when positioning rocks in your aquarium, what you're aiming to do is to try and minimize how much of the rock touches the gravel. So if you've got a large rock and it takes up that much room, all the detritus will build up around the outside and underneath the rock. Whereas what you want to aim to do is to try and put the rock on points so then there's a much smaller area touching the gravel. So you can use the glass or you can use other rocks to anchor each other off to try and elevate the rock as much as possible. Now, I typically will pick up a rock, place it in the water, roll it around in my hand and look for the most interesting feature of the rock and try to make sure that the most interesting feature is getting used best to its advantage. So you're trying to make as many caves, you're trying to create as much elevation, as many little holes where the fish can swim in and through. Try not to create contact with the surface as much as possible, and you should be able to decorate your aquarium beautifully. When selecting the gravel for your aquarium, you've got many choices. Things like the coral sand is only appropriate for fish that are going to have a very high pH, like the African cichlids. On the other hand, a 1 to 3 mil normal pebblecrete is generally what I'll recommend. There's brownish, reddish, blacks, whites. I do find that if you've got a pale coloured substrate, the colour of the fish will tend to be more pale as well. On a slightly darker substrate, the fish will bring out a more predominant pigment, stronger colour. I'll also find that if the substrate is too dark, that will promote the fish to become quite dark as well. So I'll generally like a reddy, brown type natural looking pebblecrete. Generally 1 to 3 millimeter is perfect for the rocks. If you have rocks that are 5 millimeters or above, you find that it harbours too much detritus, and what happens then is the detritus falls into the gravel as opposed to landing on the gravel. If the gravel is fine, as in 3 millimeters or 1 millimeter gravel, the detritus will land on it where the fish can sift through it and pull any excess nutrients out of it. In this particular case, you can see that the sand is really dirty underneath. You can see that the fish are sort of tossing it around at the top, but you've got a lot of gunk filling up underneath. It would be really advisable to do a gravel clean on this gravel a bit more regularly to make sure that you don't get bad types of bacteria, anaerobic bacteria forming underneath this gravel. On all circumstances, I recommend that you keep your gravel as thin as possible, because when it does start getting thick like this, the amount of gunk that's building up in it does lower your water quality and does encourage the growth of anaerobic bacteria, which discharge hydrogen sulfide, which is a toxic acid into the aquarium and is actually capable of killing your fish. The only time you'd have a thick bed of gravel is if you wanted to grow plants, because they'll need that for their roots. So when you do a gravel clean, don't clean around the very base of the plant, otherwise you're going to damage the roots of the plant. In a cichlid aquarium, keep your gravel as thin as possible, because cichlids don't really work with plants anyway, because the pH is too high, so therefore a thin bed of gravel is very important. Another very popular decoration for a tropical aquarium is driftwood. Driftwood looks very natural and can enhance many aquariums. The only disadvantage of the driftwood is it actually releases tannic acids, which will often cause a tea colour to the aquarium, which can look quite undesirable. The easiest way to remove these tannins is using activated carbon. Place the activated carbon into the filter, and providing you've got enough carbon, it'll suck these tannins out of the water. Also be aware that what the driftwood is releasing is actually tannic acids, so it will soften the water, so therefore lowering the pH. So anytime you're using driftwood in the water and you want the pH to be neutral or alkaline, you may need to buff the water to compensate for the tannic acids which are produced by the driftwood.